Ascent Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Be Your Own Cheerleader, an Asian and South Asian woman's cultural, psychological, and spiritual guide to self-promote at work, by Neelu Kaur. Narrated by Neelu Kaur. To my Nanima, grandmother, Surjit Kaur. Introduction. As an Indian-born, American-raised woman, I was taught to be humble and hardworking, to keep my head down and not draw attention to myself. None of the messaging I received, nor the behavior I observed and modeled for me helped me learn to speak up or get my voice heard. I struggled with self-promotion and advocacy throughout my education and much of my professional career. Asian and South Asian cultures do not encourage self-promotion. When Asian immigrants or children of Asian immigrants are raised in the United States, they are expected to shed their collective roots and become self-advocates in corporate America. Often, Asian women are overlooked for promotions and do not get credit for their ideas because they are unable to speak up for themselves or their accomplishments. Be Your Own Cheerleader helps professional Asian and South Asian women tap into their inner cheerleader and thrive in the North American workplace. Quiet, submissive, docile, devoted wife, and devoted mother are some, not all, of the stereotypes that Asian and South Asian women fall into. None of these stereotypes support thriving in the individualistic Western workplace. Eastern cultures promote collectivism, where the we is cherished and the I is non-existent. Whether you were raised by Asian or South Asian immigrant parents, or you migrated to work in the United States from Asian cultures, the expectation is that you know how to speak up for yourself and self-promote at work. This is the first book to help Asian and South Asian women succeed in the North American workplace. Be Your Own Cheerleader is divided into 3 modules: cultural, psychological, and spiritual. Each module is designed to give Asian and South Asian women different tools in their toolkit to be their own cheerleader at work. The intention of Be Your Own Cheerleader is to help professional Asian and South Asian women who have toggled between 2 very different cultures of East and West thrive in the North American workplace. When you are raised in the collective we, it is very difficult to make a name and place for yourself in the individual I. Not only are you unskilled in advocating for yourself, but you are also unsure how to be proud of your work or accomplishments. With the pressures of family perfectionism and shame used as a form of discipline, stress and anxiety are exponentially rising among Asian and South Asian professionals in highly competitive industries across North America. Asian and South Asian women are silent in situations where they need to use a bullhorn because they are unsure and lack the skills to speak up on their own behalf. The scenarios of being overlooked and silenced pile up, causing imposter syndrome and result in a downward spiral of low self-efficacy. It is my mission as an Indian-born, American-raised, South Asian woman to help other women succeed in the Western workplace. Standing on the shoulders of our Asian and South Asian ancestors, Be Your Own Cheerleader is intended to offer a judgment-free perspective on differing components of the East and West. These differences tend to be magnified in the Caucasian male-dominated world of corporate America. Because there are many differing aspects to consider, I focus on the areas that are the most beneficial and salient for Asian and South Asian women, given the information and knowledge I've accumulated in 15 years of teaching, facilitating, and coaching domestically and internationally in industries ranging from consulting and financial services to technology. I specialize in helping individuals, teams, and organizations be more productive, peaceful, and purposeful at work. I have a bachelor's degree from New York University's Stern School of Business and a master's degree in social and organizational psychology from Columbia University. I am also a neuro-linguistic programming NLP coach and master practitioner. My approach, analysis, and interpretation of various research is at the intersection of leadership and wellness, allowing Asian and South Asian women leaders to be successful in their role while simultaneously addressing mental well-being for themselves and the individuals they manage. Whether you listen to this book because you are searching for tools to be your own cheerleader or because you manage, coach, or mentor younger Asian and South Asian women, my wish for you is that you walk away with actionable steps to grab the bullhorn for self-advocacy and self-promotion, for yourself and to support those in your spheres of influence. Part 1. Know Thyself. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Aristotle. Chapter 1. Raised in the we, thrive in the I. National culture cannot be changed, but you should understand and respect it. Geert Hofstede. In the early 2000s, I worked in the consulting industry for one of the top 5 consulting firms. Typically, consultants worked as a team and traveled together to various companies and client sites. One evening, a senior consultant named Tom asked me to help with research and finalize a presentation that was due the next day. Of course, I had to help and stayed in the office with him until 11 p.m. We worked tirelessly to finalize a presentation for a very important meeting the next morning. I felt confident about my contribution and was excited to receive accolades for my work. I arrived bright and early the next morning, and as I walked into the conference room, the presentation was already underway. What happened? Did the meeting start early? Did Tom forget to text me and let me know to arrive an hour earlier? Did I oversleep? My head was spinning with all of the possible scenarios. Not only did Tom lie about when the meeting started, but he also made no mention of my contribution. He wanted to receive recognition for our collective work without sharing the limelight. We were a team and worked collaboratively, but he decided to take full credit for the work. I didn't know how to speak up and communicate my contribution to the presentation, so I said nothing. There have been countless times in my life when similar situations have occurred, where I expected to operate as a we and also as an I. It's confusing for anyone, but it's even more confusing when you come from a collective culture where the we is celebrated and the I is shunned. I first heard about collective and individual cultures in a class in graduate school. Dr. Lee Kneffelkamp, lovingly known as Dr. K, was my professor of intercultural communications in my master's program at Columbia University. As Dr. K lectured on Hofstede's cultural dimensions, I felt a massive epiphany wash over me. There are a total of 6 cultural dimensions, but there's one in particular that illuminates a pivotal reason why Asian and South Asian women resist speaking up and self-promoting. We are expected to embrace and reside in the we and dim the light on the I. The dimension is referred to as individualism versus collectivism. According to Geert Hofstede, individualism can be defined as a preference for a loosely knit social framework in which individuals are expected to take care of only themselves and their immediate families. Its opposite, collectivism, represents a preference for a tightly knit societal framework in which individuals can expect relatives or members of a particular in-group to look after them in exchange for unquestioning loyalty. A society's position on this dimension is reflected in whether people's self-image is defined in terms of the I or we. The countries that score very high on the individual dimension are the United States, Australia, Great Britain, the Netherlands, France, Germany, and other European countries. The countries that score very low on the individual dimension, considered collective cultures, are India, Japan, Russia, Arab countries, Mexico, and China. Hofstede is by no means implying that everyone in a given society is programmed the same way. There are considerable differences between individuals. However, according to the intercultural dimensions, we can still use the research to broadly generalize societal norms of cultures. How did individualism versus collectivism first play out for me? My folks migrated from India to the United States in the late 70s. India is a highly collective society and is based heavily on the we, while the United States is a highly individual society and is based heavily on the I. My folks wanted to retain the culture of the we so much that my brother and I were not allowed to say, "This is my toy." We had to say, "These are our toys." We were taught to share, make decisions as a family unit, and most importantly, worry extensively about what others thought. What will our relatives say? What will our relatives think about us? As I stepped out of the home into other environments, school, my friends' homes, community events, I consistently danced between the we and the I. At home, self-identity was not cultivated nor encouraged. The emphasis was on harmony, sharing of resources, and readiness to give up personal interests for the collective interest. Outside the home, the emphasis in school was on self-sufficiency, independence, and placement of self-interest over the collective interest. Confrontation is accepted, whereas in the highly collective cultures, confrontation is very much avoided. In elementary and middle school, my teachers would ask, "What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you enjoy doing? What do you love doing?" The questions were interesting to me because they implied I had a choice. My immigrant parents didn't ask those sorts of questions in our home because the assumption was that my brother and I would automatically end up in professions such as engineering, business, or medicine. There wasn't much choice in the matter. I once wrote an article and it was published in the school newsletter. I was so excited and over the moon to see my name in print that I came running home after school to show the newsletter to my mom. With a look of horror, she exclaimed, "So, you want to be a writer? You're going to write?" Becoming a full-time writer was such a foreign concept that she couldn't wrap her head around choosing a path based on self-fulfillment. Because I didn't know how to advocate for myself, I did not speak up and share my desire to write. I doubt you will run into many people who truly enjoy or are highly comfortable with confrontation, and I was, in the past, really awful at it, especially in the workplace. I was also ill-equipped to speak up for myself or voice my concerns when I disagreed. There were endless times when my work was overlooked as others on the team took credit for my ideas or deliverables. Remember Tom, the senior team member from the consulting company? The one who not only lied to me about the meeting time but also took credit for my work? I had no idea how to confront him, speak up in front of the client, or advocate for myself. You might have heard the phrase, "There is no I in team." I must say I find it to be completely and utterly untrue. Even among the team at the consulting company, there were folks who were very much comfortable highlighting their inputs and contributions. I'm not here to argue on team versus individual dynamics in corporate America. But what I can absolutely say is that as a South Asian woman, I needed to learn how to self-promote and be my own cheerleader among the group as I was highly ill-equipped to set myself up for success. This was the formula for disaster. Uncomfortable with confrontation, plus unable to speak up for myself, plus consistently worried about the perception of others, equals huge fail in corporate America. When you come from a we-based culture, how do you become comfortable and thrive in an I culture? One approach to consider is a concept called a part of and apart from. Dancing in and out of the we and I is no small feat. Looking through the lens of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, there is a concept of negotiating different parts. Often, there is a need to integrate or negotiate parts of us that are in conflict. When you are raised by parents from a collective culture, Asia, South Asia, and grow up in an individual culture, North America, there may be a need to integrate these very different parts. Milton Erickson, founder of Ericksonian hypnosis, used this phrase with his clients, being a part of and apart from. How can you be a part of the group, team, and apart from the group, team? In the past, I thought I had to choose one or the other, but after studying Dr. Erickson, I learned that it doesn't have to be either or, it can be both and. An example of being a part of and apart from in a work setting is the ability to collaborate collectively in your team, yet own and excel with your individual piece. Taking this one step further, being part of the team and yet apart from the team means not only owning and excelling in your individual piece of the work product, but also communicating your involvement, progress, and attributing credit where credit is due. Credit for your work. Perhaps it's not necessary to communicate your involvement with a bullhorn, if that's not your modus operandi. But sometimes a bullhorn is required to be heard. In hindsight, I needed to be a part of the collective team effort with Tom, but apart from the team, so I should have spoken up in the meeting and shared my contribution. Being a part of the collective team effort meant staying in the office with Tom until 11 p.m. and pulling my weight with the research and edits to the presentation. I fell short when being apart from the team. If I could redo that moment when I walked into the presentation, I would have made it clear that the meeting was for a different time on my calendar, and I would have tactfully pointed out my contribution to those in the room. It would have felt uncomfortable to speak up, but it was more detrimental to sit in silence because we teach people how we want to be treated. If I had spoken up in front of Tom, he would have been less likely to repeat the injustice. It might feel uncomfortable to grab the bullhorn, but the more you do it, the more comfortable it will be to simultaneously be a part of and apart from the team or group. Deliberate practice. Step 1. Sit in a comfortable cross-legged position on a cushion. If you are sitting in a chair, place your feet on the floor. Spreading out all 10 toes, feel your feet firmly grounded. Keep your spine tall but not rigid. Feel one straight, strong line of energy from the crown of your head to your tailbone and from your tailbone to the crown of your head. Step 2. When you feel ready, gently close your eyes. Step 3. Relax your jaw and let the tongue rest in the pool of your lower mouth. Step 4. Bring your attention and focus to your breath. As you inhale, balloon your belly out. As you exhale, bring your belly in toward the spine as if you are giving yourself a hug with the abdomen. Step 5. Inhale, balloon the belly out. Exhale, belly in toward the spine. Step 6. Visualize a situation in which you were part of the group and also apart from the group. Was it in a work, family, or social setting? As you focus on the situation, be in the experience and allow yourself to hear what you hear, see what you see, and feel all of the feelings of being a part of a group and yet apart from the group. As you experience the situation, what strategies or tools did you use to be a part of and apart from the group? Write down any tools, strategies, thoughts, or images you used or had in the experience. Write down anything that comes up for you. Step 7. Return to the present by breathing deeply into your abdomen, also known as diaphragmatic or belly breathing. Let your jaw relax and tongue rest in the pool of your lower mouth. Step 8. Imagine a future situation where you will need to be a part of and apart from the group. Take with you anything you gained from the first visualization into this future situation and see how it unfolds. Step 9. As you begin to open your eyes, know that you are very capable of tapping into this resourceful state of being a part of and apart from whenever you need. You are fully capable because you have done it before. Sometimes we just have to be reminded that we have all of the knowledge and wisdom within us. I invite you to tap into this wisdom and use it in the moments when you need to be a part of a group and apart from the group. Chapter 2. Locate your motivation. To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom. Socrates. How do you know you've done a good job at a task? Do you have a gut feeling, or do you need someone or something outside of yourself to give validation? Is it a combination? After I facilitate a workshop, I have a feeling or an internal knowing in my body if I performed well. However, I won't fully believe it until I see people smile, hear clapping, or see people rushing toward me to ask questions. During the COVID-19 pandemic, appreciation was available in the chat window for me to reaffirm that I delivered a successful workshop. What does it take for you to know that you've done a good job at a task? Shelley Rose Charvet is a thought leader in the space of motivation and language patterns. She details 5 motivation patterns in her book, Words That Change Minds, Mastering the Language of Influence. There's one in particular that is quite relevant to Asian culture and motivation. It is called the internal versus external motivation pattern. According to Charvet, people with an internal pattern provide their own motivation from within themselves. They hold standards somewhere within themselves for the things that are important to them. Their motivation is triggered when they get to gather information from the outside, process it against their own standards, and make judgments about it. Internally motivated people resist when someone tells them what to do or decides for them. The Nike tagline, "Just do it," would not be embraced. They don't want to be told what to do or how to do it because they have a strong sense of what is right and wrong within themselves. I can typically detect when a potential client is internally motivated if they ask specific questions related to their job, role, or organization. I might start the conversation. Ultimately, you know what's best for your team. my suggestions are XYZ. These folks don't want to hear about what I'm working on with other clients. Charvet says, people with an external pattern need other people's opinions, outside direction, and feedback from external sources to stay motivated. They do not hold standards within themselves. They gather them from the outside. Externally motivated people need to compare their work to an external norm or standard, and outside information is taken as a decision. I can typically detect when a potential client is externally motivated if they ask me to share information about other organizations or individuals I coach. One of my clients, Karen, was the head of a compliance division within a large financial services investment bank. She consistently inquired about workshops I facilitated for competitor investment banks. I started conversations with her by saying, at X and Y companies, I led this workshop and it was very well received among the senior managers and directors. With any sort of label, we want to rush to judge. Is one label better than the other? Is one right or wrong? Absolutely not. According to Charvet, the motivation patterns are differentiators and context-specific. You can be internally motivated with one particular project and externally motivated within your role. You can be externally motivated professionally, and you can be internally motivated in your personal life. The key is to be aware of your pattern to determine if it works for you or if you want to shift based on the context. In my own experience and when teaching and coaching hundreds of Asian and South Asian women, I noticed that there was an external motivation source pattern with those who were raised by immigrant or first-generation parents from Asia. Because Asian and South Asian cultures are based on group harmony and collective decision-making for the greater good of the group or family unit, there are often many people involved in making a decision. When it comes to academics and career choices, the subtext is that an individual chooses a profession that the family and community accepts. The immigrant mentality is of survival over personal fulfillment. Raji, a recent graduate from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, works for a large tech company. She was born in India and raised in the United States, and she went to an engineering school and became an engineer because her father was an engineer. When I asked her what type of work would be fulfilling, she said she always wanted to be a painter and own her own art gallery. Her choice to go to MIT to become an engineer was based on her father's desire and their community's implicit expectations about acceptable career choices. The opinions of others were the primary motivating factor when making decisions about her life. Hofstede suggests that collective we-based cultures prefer a tightly knit framework in which individuals can expect their relatives or members of a particular in-group to look after them in exchange for unquestioning loyalty. Typically, these collective cultures also subscribe to the joint family model where children look after their aging parents. Within Asian culture, there are typically many people residing in the home, and if not, there is still a tight-knit framework and closeness with relatives, which implies many opinions and voices to be heard. When raised in or by parents from a collective culture, there is an external source of validation and motivation embedded in the cultural framework. Individual cultures promote self-efficiency, where there is a preference for a loosely knit social framework in which individuals are expected to take care of themselves and their immediate families. In individual cultures, tasks come first and relationships come second. There are fewer cooks in the kitchen and fewer opinions and voices to be heard. With fewer people providing inputs, individuals are taught at a very young age to rely on themselves and to be self-sufficient. Essentially, they learn to trust themselves and their opinions. This topic has been a bit controversial as I teach at very large tech companies that are heavily feedback-seeking cultures. They encourage all employees to be in constant feedback-seeking mode for the sake of continuous improvement. I've had people in my class who had very strong internal motivation sources say that they do not subscribe to feedback-seeking as they have a strong internal compass. Internally motivated people don't like to be told what to do, so if they don't hear anything about their performance, they assume everything is okay. For them, no news is good news, which is why it seems quite unnatural to consistently seek feedback. There's no right or wrong way to be motivated, and remember that your motivation pattern is context-specific. You can have an internal pattern in one situation and be externally motivated in another scenario. Awareness versus self-critical judgment will allow you to assess where you are on the internal versus external motivation spectrum and decide if you want to choose differently. Personally, I may be at the extreme end of requiring external validation. When I am trying on clothes in a store, I ask a few people for their opinions. In business, I typically operate the same way. Even now, after numerous proposals, I still ask a few trusted advisors for their opinions. After teaching for well over 10,000 hours, I still look forward to the survey results from participants of my workshops and classes to motivate myself. Even if I walked away thinking I taught an amazing class, I won't actually believe it unless I hear clapping or see a slew of positive comments in the chat window of Zoom. When you come from a collective we-based culture where there is an embedded external motivation source, how do you become comfortable and trust your own voice or opinion? Perhaps there are instances where external points of view are required, or there may be instances when you want to trust your own intuition. Identifying where you are and determining if you desire to shift is an empowering way to toggle between the we and I. Bora, born and raised in the United States by Korean first-generation immigrant parents, had challenges dancing between the we at home and the I at work. I explained the difference between the internal and external motivation patterns to her, and she immediately said that at work she is externally motivated to the point where it is debilitating and prohibits her from meeting deadlines. Digging deeper, we uncovered that in her personal life with her parents, husband, and in-laws, she was also very much externally motivated when it came to making decisions about how to raise her children. Although her in-laws didn't live in the same home with her, they lived in the same neighborhood to help raise the kids. She consulted her in-laws, parents, siblings, and husband about any decisions relating to her kids. The highly collective Korean group consensus culture was bleeding into her individualistic American-based Wall Street banker job. She found herself constantly seeking validation from colleagues, data, and research, causing her to overanalyze and struggle to complete tasks on time. She wanted to know when she could trust her own judgment and intuition. I coached her to be more reflective and to become aware of her pattern to determine what was most beneficial in a given context. We worked through the following practice on numerous occasions. Deliberate practice. Step 1. Take a moment and reflect. Do you believe you have an internal or external motivation source? If you are unsure of your motivation pattern, answer the following questions for yourself. How do I know that I've done a good job at X, Y, Z? Insert specific scenario. If you have an internal motivating pattern, the answer will likely be, I decide or know myself. I evaluate my own performance based on my own criteria. I resist when someone tells me what to do or decides for me. If you have an external motivation pattern, the answer will likely be, other people or external sources of information decide or judge for me. I need to compare my work to a norm or standard. Step 2. If you are more internally motivated, ask yourself, is that beneficial in the given context? If yes, there is nothing to change or do differently. If you are internally motivated and need to widen your perspective on a deliverable or feedback that you received, consider whose opinions might help you gain new insight. Or perhaps you need to do more research before making a decision. What external sources might you consider? If you are more externally motivated, ask yourself, is that beneficial in a given context? If yes, there's nothing to change or do differently. If you are externally motivated and consistently seek many opinions or rely heavily on external resources, ask yourself, do I need multiple opinions or points of reference? How many is enough? Can I trust my own intuition more often? Step 3. Wherever you are on the internal versus external motivation spectrum, know that you now have the awareness to identify where you are and the wisdom to behave differently. Your internal compass will guide you to determine if you can rely solely on your intuition or if you need to seek additional external perspectives. Step 4. Take a moment to pat yourself on the back for learning a new concept that will help you locate your motivation source. Chapter 3. I'm so proud of you. What? We are prepared for insults, but compliments leave us baffled. Mason Cooley. American
Sample complete. Ready to continue?